All right. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our Transition at 21 webinar. My name is Sasha Biello. I'm the Director of Adult and Recreation Services at Valley Forge Educational Services. I'm going to go ahead and just do a brief introduction here. So first, thank you for coming. I know it's, your evening on a Thursday night, but I'm so glad you were able to join us for this very informative session. I know it's going to prove to be very helpful to you as you transition your loved one out of school age and into adult services. So just as a quick note, I just wanted to point out this is one of 2 Transition at 21 workshops that we're going to be hosting this school year. Our second one, just if you want to save the date, we're planning to have on Thursday, May 19th in 2022. So if you want to mark that down, registration for that will open as the date gets closer. If you're on our mailing list, you will get an invitation to that workshop. So you don't have to worry about trying to remember that. We'll let you know when that registration opens up. If you're not on our mailing list and you would like to be added, feel free to email communications@vfes.net. That's communications@vfes.net. That way we can send you that reminder to register for our next Transition at 21 workshop in May. If you don't want to be on our mailing list, that's fine as well. But just remember that coming up, so we'll probably open that registration probably end of April, beginning of May. So you can just keep an eye on our website for that. It'll be the same website, the vfes.net/transition. That's how you'll register for that workshop as well. But getting back to tonight, as you can see on the screen, our agenda for tonight, I'm going to go through a brief introduction. Then we're going to get to the whole reason that you're here to talk with Pat Bergmeyer from 1847 Financial. He's going to give us some great information about financial planning as you work through this transition process. We'll end our evening with some questions and answers, and then we'll close out no later than 7:30 tonight. Okay. Just a little background before we get started. I know most of you here are familiar with Valley Forge Educational Services, but just in case you're not, we are Valley Forge Educational Services, like I said, or VFES for short. Our mission is to prepare children and adults with special needs to realize their potential as contributing members of the community. And we do this as a nonprofit through 2 signature programs. So we have the Vanguard School, which a lot of you are very familiar with. The Vanguard School has been around for over 60 years. We're located in Malvern, and we serve children ages 5 through 21 with educational and clinical needs. We also have our Adult and Recreation Services program, which is the newer of our programs, and that has 2 components to it. That has specialized recreation, as well as our adult employment services known as Customized Workforce Solutions, or CWS. Our specialized recreation serves children and adults. So we have programs for children ages 7 through 21, where we do weekend retreats for some respite opportunities. We also have a 2-week summer camp that we run every year. And we also have Customized Workforce Solutions has adult employment programs. So that program is for adults ages 18 and older, although most of our participants don't start until the age of 21 when they age out of school. So that program allows us to do community-based work assessments, job finding services, as well as job coaching to allow our adults to be independent and making their own money once they're done school. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenter for tonight. His name is Pat Bergmeyer. He is a certified financial planner, as well as a chartered special needs consultant from 1847 Financial. Pat is going to bring some great information for you tonight to help you, like I said, transition your loved one and prepare financially for their becoming an adult. And as you can see from this list, Pat is involved not only through his career, but also personally. He sits on the board at the Timothy School. He also participates in other organizations such as Ascend, Autism Cares Foundation, Down Syndrome interest groups, as well as Plan of PA. So thank you so much, Pat, for coming. We really appreciate your help with this. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can feel free to take it away.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you guys for inviting me out. I appreciate you everybody tuning in too, taking time out of your night to come listen to me talk. And my goal is probably not to make you all experts in special needs planning. I don't think I can do that in a half an hour or so, but hopefully share with you some of the common planning mistakes I've seen in the 12 years my practice has been focused on this, some strategies to avoid those mistakes, and really understand how this planning is different and how you really do need to work with the right team of advisors, not just from a financial standpoint, but legally, tax-wise, navigating benefits, whatever it might be. And you're doing this for somebody that's depending on you now and depending on you to some extent for the rest of his or her life. And this planning is really to make sure that everything you want for them is taken care of now as you navigate through your retirement and when you're gone, hopefully many, many, many years down the road. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go through a lot of information, and a lot of it's going to be high level. If you have questions on anything as I talk about it, please use the chat function, add your question in there, and if I cover it during, or I'll leave plenty of time for questions and answers afterwards as well. So really quick background on me. I've been doing financial planning for 16 years. For the past 12 years, my team, our practice has been focused on financial planning for loved ones that have dependents with special needs, disabilities, whatever they might be, from those that need 24/7 support to those that are higher functioning, yet still need some financial support to have the quality of life that parents want for them. These conversations I have are, 3 to 4 times a day. They're all the same, but they're all different, if that makes sense. And I say that because special needs planning has to be unique, just like your loved one's unique. And there's no manual for this. There's no how-to, which I think is a good thing. But again, it just makes what is an already pretty complex planning scenario even more confusing, frustrating, intimidating, whatever adjective you want to use. But please know there's resources out there to help you navigate it. So I, talking to plenty of parents, the couple hundred I have that have loved ones with a disability, the things and the goals that are important to them, they all pretty much resonate with the same things. It's the focus is my child depends on me and depends on me to some extent for the rest of his or her life. I want to make sure that they are taken care of. I want their lifetime care, their quality of life maintained if I'm here or if I'm not. And I don't know what quality of life means to you. I can certainly help you quantify it, but that's the biggest thing is, having a target to aim for in all of this, which is how much is it going to cost for quality of life, to know that there's a plan that when you're not here or not able to provide what you've done your child's entire life, that there's somebody to step in and try to fill your shoes as much as possible. That these government benefits, and there was a lot of questions on government benefits. I mean, any of you that are already qualifying for a government benefit, you realize it's no cakewalk to get it. So not only do we want to get government benefits, but we want to maximize them, and we also want to protect them. For those of you guys that are married, you are embarking upon what's I've called a 3-person retirement, which is parents' lifetime income and the lifetime income needs for your child, who might be a whole generation younger than you. And if you have an 18-year-old with a disability that could live till they're 100 years old, and you're in your 40s or 50s, you don't make the same investment decisions that you would just like anybody else your age. You need to pretend, hey, how would I invest if I'm 18 and I have this much time ahead of me? How would I make my insurance planning decisions if I need to protect assets that I want to fund the future of somebody that's not able to create their own funding? So everything's different from a financial planning standpoint. How you look at investing, how you look at your taxes, how you look at your, insurance planning decisions. It's all unique and at a much higher level. Hard question that you also have to ask is, I've got more than one child. How, if at all, do I equalize what I leave behind? I've learned equal doesn't mean fair. Fair doesn't mean equal. But of the many hard answers you need to come up with, this is at the top. And you might look at this situation for your children and realize, my child with a disability needs a whole lot more than his siblings do. But I can promise you, once you have grandchildren, if you're lucky enough to have grandchildren, that your opinion might change again. And you want to try to do this as equitably as possible, because receiving money or not receiving money can change people. And then Uncle Sam. So Uncle Sam does not care you have a child with a disability when it comes to taxes. He or she is going to be taxed just like anybody else. Some cases worse than others. So we need to understand that, because when you're funding for somebody that is depending on you forever, the legacy goals that some like other families might have, yours is kind of more like a necessity. And if we're going to fund things when we pass away, we better understand where Uncle Sam's going to come in and to what extent. So where the mistakes are commonly made. Well, number one, it's the advisors in your life, if we can even call them that. Number one, they don't talk to each other. There's no open flow of communication between legal, tax, and finances. And the people just aren't experts. There's a very big difference in having things done as optimally and as efficiently as possible when it comes to your legal planning and financial planning versus just having it done. And think of all the IEPs you guys have done. Have you ever settled for your IEP to be okay or satisfactory? Probably not. Why would we ever settle for our legal planning or financial planning to be okay? And I think we've been, sucked into this false sense of security these past 12 years because the market hasn't gone through a major correction and taxes are at historically low rates. We are spoiled. We are potentially due for a major market correction. So a lot of times people think, well, if it's not broken, I don't need to fix it. You won't want to find out something's been breaking down when it's too late. So you need to update things. You need to audit investment strategies. You need to audit your insurance planning. And honestly, the worst financial advisors I see are those that try to do this on your own, to try to plan for 2 lifetimes of income, navigating market volatility, tax law changes, and an uncertain mortality. You can't do that on your own. Managing investments, it's not rocket science. I mean, you can possibly accumulate a pretty good sum of money, but chances are you're accumulating it in the wrong types of buckets. So you really need to leverage the advice of people that do this for a living. And the other thing is we just don't plan. We don't like to think about our death and our demise. And I can tell you, you start this planning with the attorney or somebody like me, there's a lot of emotional investment in this. This is why there's no lines outside my door or an attorney's door on a daily basis for people to come in and start talking about what happens when I die, or am I going to have enough money in retirement? But we need to do it. We need to do it because our kids depend on us. Special needs or not, if they're under 18, we owe it to do proper planning for them. And when you have a child with a disability, this is crucial. I mean, we're talking about government benefits that are in jeopardy if we don't. And look, there's always going to be something on your plate. My child's young. My child's higher functioning. They're going to try to go to college first. They're not disabled. I have other things on my plate. Throw a pandemic on top of it. I mean, there's always going to be something. But that doesn't mean you don't plan. It doesn't mean you don't have a backup plan if the best case scenario doesn't come to fruition. Sometimes what we do and what the attorneys do is that worst case scenario plan. It's like, hey, if they don't go to college and graduate and become gainfully employed with enough income to live independently in their own apartment or with some buddies or friends of theirs, then what's the backup plan? What if we do need to get government benefits? So you need to think of it, plan for the best, expect for the best, but what if that doesn't happen? So hopefully we'll also clear up some confusion that's out there in understanding what the different parts of a comprehensive special needs plan are and why they're all important. So, this visual, these are the 3 main areas: legal, benefits, financial planning. And my terrible artistic interpretation of this shows you the flow of this. And my first disclosure, I'm not an attorney. So I don't do, nor can I do what the attorneys do. And they definitely cannot do what I do. That's why you need these 2 advisors in your life talking to each other and collaborating together on your planning. And, when you do this estate planning, and that term just sounds kind of intimidating. Well, estate planning, that's only for the super wealthy in the world. Well, no, anybody that has anything, bank accounts, a house or something, we all need an estate plan. Anybody that's got a minor child, we have to do that. And if you have a child with a disability, like I said, it's crucial to have the proper legal documents in place. But this is what these attorneys do. And I don't want to dumb it down because it's a very high level of legal work, but the attorneys create legal documents. The basic of basic legal documents we all need to have. One is our will, which when we have minors, it's the only way to say who we want to raise our kids if we died. I think it's the most important decision we need to make as parents. I mean, we don't want family fighting over who they feel is best suited to raise somebody. So who raises our kids? Who gets what? When do they get it? How do they receive it? Do we leave money outright to kids at 18? Do we leave money in trust to them past age 18? These are all important considerations when it comes to putting our wills in place. And then we need our powers of attorney. If you're incapacitated, no financial institution is going to talk to anybody unless there's a financial power of attorney in place. I can't talk to any of my clients' spouses unless I have a financial power of attorney that's signed and notarized. Can't take trading instruction, can't take distribution instruction. Your 401k is not going to talk to your spouse. So financial power of attorney is huge, important. document. And same thing for the medical power of attorney. Nobody's going to take medical advice from somebody, nor can they release your private medical information to someone unless there's an active healthcare power of attorney. So those three documents, your wills and the two powers of attorney, are part of a basic estate plan. And then the most important document that probably everybody on this call needs to have or has to have provisions for in your will is this thing called a special needs trust. More appropriately, a third party or supplemental needs trust. This is the document you all need because it is the only way that you can protect government benefit eligibility and leave a meaningful amount of money behind to your child. That trust document puts this protective legal barrier around whatever assets that trust eventually owns and says, none of this is countable against your loved one for government benefits. It could have millions of dollars in it, and they would still get all their eligibility-based benefits like supplemental security income and Medicaid and waivers and food stamps and Section 8 vouchers. There's no other way to do it. You absolutely need the provisions for a special needs trust because we don't know when we're going to die. So a lot of people I talk to are very confused by this trust document. They think that special needs planning begins and ends with having a special needs trust. It definitely doesn't. I mean, that trust document, that paperwork that you leave your attorney's office doesn't do anything for your child unless it's got enough money in it, enough assets eventually to go into that trust to pay for the things you want for your loved one. The document itself will do nothing without proper finances in place. But the benefits we're protecting, yeah, it'll maximize all those benefits. And those benefits create this floor of supports and services for your child. And I'll talk about these ages and why they're important. But the intent of a properly funded special needs trust is not just to get government benefits, because we all know it's not going to give our child quality of life. We need to provide quality of life, and that costs money. We need to pay for any medical care that maybe Medicare and Medicaid aren't going to cover. Care management, one of the most overlooked aspects of financial special needs planning, which is you're not here or not physically able to do all the things you've done for your child for their entire life. Who's going to do it? You think the supports coordinator is going to be there on a daily or weekly basis? No. Is your neurotypical heirs, they're going to be able to be there on a daily or weekly basis? Possibly not. What if they don't live logistically close, or their own career or family demands, their own lives take them outside of the Philly area? I mean, we talk about quality of life in special needs planning, and it's usually focused on the individual with a disability, but your quality of life is just as important. And your other family members' quality of life, we don't want to overlook that as well. We want them to be able to make their life decisions around what's best for them and take them logistically wherever that might take them or their partners in their lives. And I can tell you, when your children have children, their own children will take precedence over their sibling. It's just how it works when you become a parent. And it's important to understand that. And because the thing that scares me is a client comes to me and says, well, they're just going to live with their brother or sister if we die. I'm like, that's a lot to ask of them. And I mean, I hate saying burden, but it's a ton of responsibility, and that is going to be life-changing for them as a sibling. Maybe we should think this out and what's in everybody's best interest. So that's the hardest thing to navigate. But these things, they all cost money, which is why we need the finances, which is why we need enough money to eventually go into this special needs trust that you spend a good amount of money on with the attorney to make sure we can do everything we want to do for your child indefinitely. So one of the things that intimidates parents is they start trying to figure out, well, what do I need? What do I need if I died yesterday? How do I save for my own retirement, my other kids' college, and for my child who needs lifetime support? Parents, if your child needed for something today, who pays for it? You do, right? And they're going to be relying on you to some extent, even when you're in retirement. Who's going to pay for things for them then? You will. Well, you're the living, breathing special needs trust. You just happen to go by mom and dad. There's nothing that trust can do that you guys can't do, keeping assets in your own name. So you don't need to be moving money out of your name into anything for your child while you are alive. That's the special needs trust. That goes for even an ABLE account majority of the time. We know they can't have over $2,000 in assets in their names, so we can't accumulate in their names. So we want to understand all of the decisions that we make when it comes to our financial planning is to focus on two goals. And the analogy I've always used is you get on an airplane, the flight attendant comes on and says, parents, in the event of an emergency, you have to put your oxygen masks on first before you help your kids. And your oxygen mask in my world is your ability to retire and transition to being financially independent as soon as possible, to retire at the highest amount of income from all sources. So maximizing your Social Security and maybe pensions if you're lucky enough to get them from your home equity, from insurances, whatever it might be. But if we can get you the most income from all sources with the highest probability of not running out of money before you die, and you live a long time at the highest amount of income, that means your child's taken care of as long as you're alive. So that's the main goal that we should focus on. If we invest in something, pay down a debt, whatever it might be, will this correlate to more income for us in retirement? And then the second goal, though, is, well, we need to fund a special needs trust. And how do we do that in a way that Uncle Sam doesn't take anywhere from 4.5% to 40% of it? How do we do it in a way that we try to equalize things between all of our heirs? And how do we do it if we are going to need to live off our assets for the rest of our lives? This is very complex because those two goals don't go like this your entire life. The more money you spend, the less money that's there for your kids. Think of the psychological tug of war you're going to deal with in retirement, worrying about going on vacation, going to a show, going out to eat because it's less money for your heirs. And frankly, it is a lot harder for us to generate retirement income while trying to protect principal. So it's understanding there's a better way, there's a more optimal way. And sometimes you need to get out of your own way and preconceived notions about some other strategies and understand your plan does not have a book that goes along with it. Your plan is not found in a Forbes article or some talking head on TV. It's got to be tailored to the uniqueness of having a child with a disability. So I know that's a lot, and I know you guys had questions on government benefits, and frankly, you could have a whole night on government benefits alone. But really quickly, the thing you need to understand with benefits, there's two types. One, that our children are eligible to receive. They have to have less than $2,000 in most cases. They also have to be disabled to qualify for them. So these needs-based or eligibility-based benefits, the most common one people are going to think of is Medicaid. Well, our children, as long as they're in the school system up until 21, there's a loophole for Medicaid and PA. So our children are entitled to Medicaid while they're in school. That's huge because it gets wraparound services in the school, but it's health insurance that picks up any copays, deductibles, things like that after your private insurance. Could be paying thousands of dollars a month in medication. So it's a very important benefit. What goes along with Medicaid is supplemental security income, SSI. The acronym's confusing. People think it's Social Security. It's not. It's very different, even though it's administered by the Social Security Administration. SSI is roughly $800 a month. It's intended to pay for food, shelter, and utilities. So hopefully nobody from Social Security is on this call, but if you are, I apologize in advance. SSI isn't knock on Social Security's door, show them your kid's 18, and you get SSI that day. They give you a check actually when you walk out, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Nothing with the government is easy. It can take months. You could get denied. You could get denied for the full amount. They're going to ask you for some crazy things. And sometimes these Social Security agents act like you're taking money out of their own pocketbook or wallet when you're trying to get and maximize SSI. Trust me, I've seen plenty of ridiculous stories over the past 12 years. So it's frustrating. It is stressful. There are resources out there to help you navigate that. There are benefits experts that for a living work on SSI applications and appeals all the time, help you navigate waiver, help you navigate all the different benefits related things. But the important thing to understand is none of it matters in most cases when your kid's under 18. They're going to look at what you make and what you have. And if you're not below a certain asset and income level, they're going to be financially ineligible. And once they turn 18 on their 18th birthday, that does not matter anymore what you have. It's solely, do they have less than $2,000 in assets? But are they considered a disabled adult child? So that definition is very strict. They have to be deemed essentially not to be able to make $1,300 a month of employment income if they're working. So a lot of your kids might be in this gray area where they might not have an intellectual disability. They might be higher functioning, but still need a level of supports. The key, though, is understanding that at 18, that clock starts ticking until they turn 22 years old. Because if you don't have them in the system after their 18th birthday when they're an adult and before their 22nd birthday as a disabled adult child, you lose out on a tremendous benefit, which is their ability to collect off your Social Security record. If they are a disabled adult child, you start your Social Security retirement or become disabled, they're entitled to 50% of what you get in addition to your benefit. And when you die, they're entitled to 75% of your Social Security. So it's huge. This is why we can't wait. It's why we can't test college or employability. We need to do these things extremely fast and try to get them done the right way so it's the least amount of headache. So that's why 22 is that important age. 21, you all know that's when your kids transition out of school. However, with the Medicaid ending at that point, if your child gets SSI, their Medicaid eligibility continues. So that's why it's important to understand that. At 26, though, that's when they might drop off your health insurance if you have them covered with primary insurance. But a lot of larger employers will cover disabled adult children past 26. So it's something you want to ask and find out. So SSI approval processes, there are some testing that is done. I know enough to be dangerous with government benefits, but when you start this process, these benefits experts can tell you what kind of evaluations need to be done, what kind of psychological tests to help make your child's case for determining them to be a disabled adult child. So there are testing that needs to be done. IQ alone is not a guarantee to be disabled. Having autism does not mean you're disabled. Having Down syndrome does. It's a diagnosis that you're always considered disabled. So the key thing is you just make sure that they don't have too many assets in their name. There was a good question. What are the steps for SSI? Well, there's numerous, and it can only start the month after they turn 18. But you can start gathering historical medical information, doctor's records, specialists, psychologists, have all that ready. And then you can schedule the appointment at the month after they turn 18. And then you're going to this interview with your child. I think it's still virtual, but trying to show, is this individual disabled? So that's why I would highly suggest you tap into the expertise of somebody that does this regularly to kind of coach you in here's what you need to do and why. The big thing to understand, though, is SSI. You don't just get $800 a month. You have to show the Social Security office that you are using that money for what it's intended to be used for: food, shelter, and utilities. And that's it. So you, as a parent, assuming your child's living under your roof, has to start charging them room and board, not rent. Room and board is their share of the household expenses. You do not profit off of it. It is not taxable as income. Rent is income. It means they're a tenant of yours. Your child is not a tenant of yours. So anybody that's ever told you it's rent is completely wrong. I hope you haven't been claiming it as income, but you do need to do it, because if you don't, if you are deemed to be paying for something SSI is supposed to pay for, they will automatically reduce that benefit by 1/3. And that's, I think, like $250 a month. Why would we leave that on the table if we can avoid it? So again, big difference between having stuff done and having it done as efficiently as you can. So the estate planning, beneficiary designations, again, great, oh great, I have a will, I have a special needs trust. Well, that's awesome. Did you update your beneficiaries? Do your beneficiaries properly reflect the legal documents and the trust provisions you have? Have you updated this document in the past 3 years? There's a major tax law change last year that you need to update things for. Power of attorney laws changed a few years ago. But if your documents are collecting dust, that's great, you have them, but they need to be updated and reviewed on a regular basis. You need to make sure they were done by an expert in special needs law, somebody that does this all the time. And there's really only a handful of them in the Philadelphia area. I've worked with pretty much all of them. So I'll usually recognize the name of the attorney to know, hey, yes, you're at least in good hands there. But you can't just create the documents and never update the beneficiaries. It's one of the biggest mistakes that I see. So back to the age 18, and then I'll talk about financial planning, because I saw a couple questions on this. You need to make a decision at age 18. What do you do in terms of still being involved with your child's medical decision making? And right now we have, if your child has capacity, they can sign a medical power of attorney appointing you as their agent. If they don't have capacity, which is determined by the attorney, then you pursue guardianship. Another option, which is relatively new, is supported decision making. But the thing you have to do is you have to do something. You need something in place that allows you to be able to talk to doctors and give them authority to release medical information to you. That's important for any of our kids over the age of 18. If you're sending a kid away to college, you want to make sure they have signed a medical power of attorney, because if you're here in Philly and they're in Chicago going to college, that's a long flight, not knowing what the heck's going on with your child. So these are important things that we all need to consider when it turns 18. Is it difficult? I mean, a good attorney will educate you on what is most appropriate for not only your child, but for everybody. I strongly advocate for doing power of attorney before you pursue guardianship. Power of attorney is not invasive. It's simply your child allowing you to talk on their behalf. It does possibly have some drawbacks to it, but it's not going to court, petitioning that judge to declare your child mentally incompetent and taking away all of their independent decision making. But that might be best for what's best for your child. So it all depends. What you don't want is an attorney just saying, oh, you have an 18-year-old with autism or Down syndrome, they need guardianship, and pushing you to do guardianship. There are more judges from the attorneys I talk to that are frowning upon that and trying not to approve legal guardianship and try to encourage families to take alternative routes. But again, be educated, talk to somebody that does this all the time. So if you can't afford it, maybe there's some, I think it's called legal aid out of Philly that can help with paying for some of these things. But the cost of it for guardianship, for an uncontested guardianship, usually is anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. Contested guardianship is going to be a lot more than that. Whereas a power of attorney, that legal document, is a few $100s. So you want to know that going into the situation. So, all right. So the financial side of this, a lot of everything, like I said, is different. Tax planning, your child's going to get taxed when you leave assets to them. The special needs trust has its own tax schedule. You need to understand that. Taking Social Security, when to take it. If your child's going to be able to collect off your work record, it may not make sense to take it at 62. So it's understanding how to work within Social Security with, if you're married, when's the best time for both of you to start your Social Security, to give your child the best options as well. Again, investing, I would suggest you invest like your child's age again, because that's how much time you have for this wealth that it needs to last. Insurance planning is different. Quantifying what your child needs. I mean, we have a calculator that is proprietary that I helped create to start giving us a target that we can aim for. Inflation is necessary in part everything. I mean, everything's going to get more expensive. New technology is going to be present in the future. I think every single one of my clients that has a kid living in their own apartment has the most up-to-date security system, cameras, you name it, to be able to still monitor things that are going on. You can have bed sensors, you can have door sensors, all kinds of things and all these things cost money. And then we don't want to forget about taxes. And the tax conversation gets into, well, what can we fund a special needs trust with? Well, you can put anything into a special needs trust. You can put investment real estate, a primary residence, taxable investments, retirement accounts, Roth or pre-tax. You could fund it with life insurance, but you need to understand how all of these are taxed. So in Pennsylvania, nothing like talking taxes at 6:30, but the state of Pennsylvania levies a 4.5% inheritance tax to our children. Everything we leave them, they're going to pay 4.5% off with no exemptions. That's from $1. That counts everything with the exception of life insurance. You can leave an unlimited amount of life insurance behind in Pennsylvania. They don't touch it at all. Real estate, taxable investments, there is no taxes on income or capital gains when we die and we leave those to our kids. They get what's called a stepped up cost basis. So it's just the 4.5% inheritance tax. Not too bad. Retirement accounts, the absolute worst thing you can leave behind to your kids, special needs or not, are pre-tax retirement accounts. These are accounts that you're deferring income taxes on, your thrift savings plans, your 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, lump sum pensions. This is money that has never been income taxed. So guess who gets to deal with the taxes when we die? Our neurotypical kids have, after the Secure Act passing last year, are now restricted to a 10-year payout from those, meaning the IRS wants their tax revenue faster, and leaving it to a special needs trust. That special needs trust pays 37% income tax rate once the trust earns $13,000. That's a lot of money going to Uncle Sam, because we just don't begin with the end in mind. And our accountants are saying defer taxes. This is what everybody does. We don't want to pay taxes now. Well, you're not saving anything. You're just deferring them to a future date, which is why Roth accounts much more applicable in the special needs community, taxable investments, you name it. But if you have a lot accumulated in an IRA, it's not the end of the world. We have to get ahead of Uncle Sam. We have to do proactive tax planning and not just leave this the chance that we think we're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement or when we leave money to our kids. So again, where traditional financial planners fail is they do not think multi-generationally. Life insurance, if you're lucky enough to be under the federal estate tax exemption or lucky enough to be over it, depending on how you look at it. So if you're not worth $26 million, your estate doesn't pay a federal estate tax. Life insurance is free from all taxation. Even if you're in a federally taxable estate, we can leave unlimited amounts of life insurance behind and the government doesn't touch it. Trust me, I stress test this. There's no better way to leave wealth behind to the next generation. Psychologically, it frees us up to spend our money. So you should understand, I'm a parent of a child with a disability. What are some of the unique life insurance strategies applicable to me that maybe my neighbor or my general insurance agent I get my auto and homeowners through doesn't even understand that's out there? So all of these things you need to approach a little bit differently for your child. You also have to think about lifetime care for yourself. If you're not focusing on continuing to grow your wealth, but also protect it, and that's from taxation or going to a nursing home, I don't care how good the stock market does. If it wipes out hundreds of thousands of dollars of wealth that have to pay for a care provider that could have otherwise gone to your kids, I mean, that's bad planning in my opinion. So you need to look at these things and understand, how do I approach this risk differently than other people? There was questions on the ABLE account, and the way I talk about the ABLE account is to talk about what the ABLE account is not. And just like everything else we do, if we're going to make decisions on anything financial, it's not with blinders on, looking at things in a bubble and looking, oh, look at how great this ABLE account is. It's comparing it to other options. So again, our goal in life is to maximize our retirement income as parents and to fund this special needs trust for our child, which what I talked about doesn't have to occur until you are gone, mom and dad. How do we do that in the most efficient way? How do we use dollars as effectively as we can for our children? If there's money that you have in your name that you can control and invest wherever you want and spend on whatever you want, to me, it makes no sense to fund an ABLE account like an investment, because ABLE accounts are limited to what you can spend the money on. Why would you ever put money into an account where now you are told what you could spend it on, when you can keep it in your own name and have full autonomy on what you can invest in and what you can use it for? You still can get tax-free income from Roth IRAs and tax deferral on taxable accounts. So the tax benefits of an ABLE account are completely misjudged. Before a trust pays taxes on anything, there's standard deductions for trust, and we can still use some more sophisticated investment strategies. So where you can use an ABLE account, you can fund an ABLE account with up to $16,000 starting next year. If you're spending money on your child for expenses that are disability related, could be educational, therapeutic, diet, medicinal, whatever it might be that you could consider a disability related expense, because that's only what these things can be used for. You can't spend it on a vacation. You can't spend it on going to the mall or going to a ball game or going to the movies. It's got to be a disability related expense. Well, our state's pretty unique. We get to deduct contributions for state income taxes. So 3.07% we save on PA taxes when we contribute to an ABLE account, same thing like a 529. So let's just say you plan on spending $10,000 and $15,000 this year on your child on disability related expenses. Well, I would use an ABLE account similar to like a health savings account or a flex spending account, where it's just a conduit. It goes in there, I take it then back out to reimburse me. It is not a long-term investment vehicle. I'm an investment guy. They give you a handful of mutual funds to pick from. I don't want that. I want individual stocks. I want exchange traded funds. An ABLE account is not a long-term investment vehicle. And I'll talk about that in more detail. But unfortunately, the disability community does not talk about ABLE accounts this way. They talk about how great they are. It's, oh, you can have your child learn how to spend. You can have them learn how to spend in a checking account and budgeting and things like that. You just got to keep their assets below $2,000. If they do accidentally receive an inheritance, yeah, I could see where an ABLE account could come into play. But I still think there are some ways that you can creatively do this. You can charge your child for more, especially when they start getting Social Security, before we start ever thinking about funding an ABLE account. And things like SSI. I have parents ask me on a regular basis, well, why don't I fund their ABLE account with their SSI? I'm like, all right, well, let's think about this. You already understand you don't need to put anything into their name because you're here paying for anything that ABLE account or trust could pay for, right? Exactly. So you put $800 a month into their ABLE account and you want to go on a vacation. Well, now you can't take it out. What's the point of that? How long at roughly $10,000 a year would you need the market to not only cooperate, but for you to live where that $10,000 a year would actually grow to any meaningful amount for your child? Very long time. So you charge room and board, say it's $600 of the $800. It's still an extra $800 a month of cash flow to the household. Now it frees up $800 a month you were spending on your child anyway to use that as effectively as you can for them. Maybe you use it to pay down your mortgage. Maybe you use it to pay for your life insurance or your long-term care insurance. Maybe you fund a Roth IRA with it, in still investing for their future, but in your name. Parents, every dollar you have is your child's anyway. your 401k, your savings account, your home equity, it would all go to them. So we just want to keep it in your name and use it for them effectively while you're alive and tax efficiently pass this stuff to them when you die. So again, there's ways we can do this better and more efficient. So where do you begin? Look, honestly, at this point in the presentation, your head's probably spinning because I went through everything fast, but I'm trying to hit you with as much as possible. So I'm biased to this answer. I think, and look, if it's me or somebody like me that understands financial planning for your situation, if you meet with your financial planners first, and hopefully minimally they're a certified financial planner, you can get organized. You'll know where everything is. You'll know how everything's titled and what everything's worth. You will have some of these preliminary conversations, the questions the attorney's going to ask you anyway. Hey, who do you want as guardian? Can you guys agree who do you want as guardian? Well, what about the backup for them? What about the backup for the backup? All right, well, what about trustee? Who's going to oversee the money for the kids? Is it one person? Is it a co-trustee? Is it a corporate fiduciary? Who do we want as a backup for those individuals as well? Your other kids, how do we equalize things? Do you feel comfortable not equalizing things? What about the neurotypical kids? Do we want them to have a blank check at 18, or do we want money protected for them until they're at a more responsible age where that money's not going to be blown on bad decisions or creditors or litigation or divorce, those risks that present themselves. So that way, you're organized, you have these answers already, you meet with the attorney, you're interviewing them to see if you like them, they're doing the same thing to you, you see if you agree to their fee schedule, and it can make that process 1,000 times easier. Either way, if you do the attorney first, all that legal work needs to be complemented with your financial stuff on the beneficiary designations and titling things the right way. And again, that's where I see a lot of attorneys, even the good ones, drop the ball because they'll create great legal documents, but never make sure you follow through and update your beneficiaries. So the other thing to think about is there's what people talk about and what other families share with you. And then there is reality, the harsh reality that bad stuff can happen. COVID, I think, taught us that. It taught us that tomorrow is not guaranteed. The stuff we might be saving to do in retirement is never guaranteed to us. But if you died yesterday, because that's the worst case scenario, you died yesterday. If you have enough assets, or if you don't have enough assets and you've used life insurance appropriately, if you died without a will and without a special needs trust, there's at least enough money there for your child. We can reactively, with whoever the guardians would be, create a different type of special needs trust so government benefits are protected. So it's not like they're lost forever, but at least there's enough money to be there for your children. You could have the best legal plan in place, but if you don't have your finances squared away and you die without doing that, there's not going to be enough money for your child, and the purpose of that special needs trust goes out the window. The trust is there to pay for lifetime care, not 10 years of care. So we need to understand that when it comes to the planning. If you do want to sit down with us, our meetings are complimentary. I don't know going into it, number one, how I can help you, or if I want to help you. And you don't know if you like me enough to want to have a multi-decade relationship with me. That's what we're trying to figure out. Do we like each other enough? And do we feel we can help you? And do you want our help? I can tell you in 12 years doing this, hasn't been one person I've sat down with that has had everything T's crossed, I's dotted as efficiently as they can. That's not like there is anything egregious. It's just like, look, this is okay, but it could be better. Maybe it's not us that you need right now. Maybe you need attorneys to help you with a benefits navigation if you've been denied, or doing your legal documents, or a family law issue. Well, I've got people that I've worked with over the past 10 years that do that kind of thing. Maybe you need a benefits expert. We can get you connected to other resources within the community. But the important thing is education and partnering with whoever you end up doing this with. I'll go through these next two slides really quickly. So when I used to do these in person, I would hand out an evaluation form, and it would have all the common things that now people are worried about after sitting through a presentation. And these ones at the top, I think, apply to everybody. With running out of money in retirement, we stare mortality in the face. I wish I knew how long my clients were going to live. It would make my job 1,000 times easier and tell them how much they could spend. But it's a realistic fear. We fear running out of money or not spending enough of it and dying young. So that's which one is worse. Taxes, I haven't found anybody that likes paying taxes. I also haven't found many people that understand how taxes are paid over I call it the 3 T's of taxation: today, tomorrow in retirement, and T, the transfer to your kids. So it's, understanding that. You're starting to question, are the people I work with experts? When's the last time I updated my legal documents? My financial advisor really has never talked to me about any of these things. So very, very important, again, to surround yourself by the right team. the 3-person retirement, like having life insurance. Having life insurance does not mean you have the right like amount or type of life insurance. Life insurance is not all created equally. The worst type of life insurance is out there, if you're healthy, is what you can get through your employer's plan by buying supplemental life insurance. It's the least efficient and typically the more expensive type of life insurance that's out there. Followed closely to that is insurance for your auto or homeowner's insurance agent. Let them stick to auto and homeowner's insurance. They shouldn't be doing life insurance, because you have to understand that it's not only today what's competitive, not cheap, but competitive, but what's going to give you the most attractive options in the future as your plan evolves, as you see how your child is doing as an adult. And then like more information. So all this stuff is pretty straightforward, but one of the things that you really need to start thinking about is the money's great, the legal documents are important, but there's still somebody, there is an individual that is the center of all this. There is an individual that you probably, as their mom or dad, have a lot of information up here that you want for them. What's the day in their life look like? What's their routine? What's their likes, their dislikes? What do you want living situations to look like? What do you want education, marriage, holidays, all of these things that you would otherwise be involved with as a parent? Have you communicated that to the people that are going to be left behind? So there's something you can create called a letter or memorandum of intent that spells that out. It's not a legal document, it doesn't cost anything, but it really helps from the emotional standpoint to say, here's what I want, here's the path that I would want somebody to follow for my child. You give that to the trustee, you give it to guardians, you give it to anybody that would be involved with their life, so they have an idea of what to do, and more importantly, what to spend money on. So, and of course, my disclosures, none of that was tax or legal advice, but I'm going to go back through the questions that you guys had and see what I didn't talk about. I know one of you had asked, you have a younger child, and when do I begin this planning? Well, jokingly, it's one day before we die. As long as you do it before then, it makes it a whole lot easier. But every time I talk to a parent of like a 25-year-old or a 35 or a 45-year-old, and I see that they, number one, haven't done anything, or have just been doing things for decades inefficiently, I tell them, like, man, if we would have met 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we could have avoided a lot of these mistakes and made it the most optimal plan for you from the get-go. Now we have to kind of deconstruct things and deal with some things we could have avoided by you waiting too long to do it. So there is never too young, or like I said, special needs or not, our minor children depend on us. We still have to have the right legal documents in place. We still have to have enough life insurance if we die, and disability insurance, we understand if we became disabled. Our kids rely on us. I would say as early as you possibly can, and understanding there's a timeline I usually use to say, here's the things to be thinking about once you get diagnosed, once you deal with your first IEP, when you're in the thick of transition planning, your ISPs come about, 18 to 21, post 21, and then as you're in retirement. These are all different major milestones when it comes to planning. Thank you for the person that asked about grandparents. Grandparents can be such a phenomenal, or other family members rather, can be such a tremendous resource in multi-generational special needs planning. The leverage that grandparents can give with gifting, what they can do to leave more money behind for your child, which takes the burden off of you, or through their gifting to help you do some of these things. And with Zoom, the world's a lot flatter. We can get grandparents in California at the same table virtually to talk about, number one, grandparents, here's the things to do that you don't screw up what your kids did. So that's rule number one. They need to update their stuff to reflect your documents. Number two is, hey, you want to leave money behind, or you want to gift, here's some of the things you can do that work really well. And it's just making sure that they're open to that conversation, and then understanding some of the options that are available to them. If we have, Sasha, are we okay for another like 3 minutes on a quick ABLE account conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
All right. So ABLE accounts, hottest topic in the special needs community, most misunderstood topic in the special needs community too. So this is something that I use to explain why would we fund an ABLE account. So this all comes down to, there's money either from coming in from your child through SSI or Social Security, or an accidental inheritance. There's money you have in your name as a parent that you worked hard and you accumulated, or there's money that somebody wants to give to you. So remember the two important questions. Is this going to give me more income? Is this going to be good to fund my child's special needs trust when it's needed, which is when I'm not here? So what could we do with an asset? So we could keep it, it boils down to these different characteristics. So we could keep it in our own names as parents. We can fund their third-party special needs trust, or we can fund their ABLE account. So what can we use things for? Well, if it's in my name, I can spend that money on whatever I want. I can spend it on myself. I can spend it on my child with a disability. I can help my other kids out with it, not restricted. If it's in their third-party trust, pretty much anything for the benefit of your child, you can use money in a third-party trust for. So it's more restricted than you keeping it in your name, but you pretty much have autonomy, especially if you're the trustee, on what you can use it for. In an ABLE account, as I mentioned, disability-related expenses only. What can we invest in? You can invest in anything in your name, pretty much anything in a special needs trust, but only a handful of mutual funds in the ABLE account. So very restrictive there. Taxes. ABLE account always, oh, it's tax deductible. It's tax deductible and it's tax-free when you take it out for disability-related expenses. That's great. IRAs are deductible. We can deduct money we contribute to our 401k or a traditional IRA and still get a tax deduction, a federal one that's not 3% to the state. Roth IRAs, we can take money out tax-free to spend on things. Health savings accounts, we can take out for medical related expenses tax-free. We can get tax deferral on individual stocks and in taxable accounts and pay capital gains taxes at 15% rather than income taxes. So it depends, on the asset that we use. The third-party special needs trust, if we gifted to the trust, there's no tax deductions on that. But the ABLE account is deductible for state income taxes. So if you put in 10 grand, you save $307 in your state income taxes. What about taxes while we are alive as parents? So depending on the asset dictates how things are taxed for us. IRAs, taxes are deferred. We pay ordinary income taxes when we take money out. Roth IRAs grow completely income tax free for the rest of our lives and our kids' lives. And taxable investments, we will pay taxes as we go, be it realized capital gains or dividends that get paid. Same thing goes for a trust. Trust has its own tax schedule when we die. Usually taxes will flow back to you if you have funded it while you were alive. An ABLE account grows tax-free if we use the money for a disability-related expense. It is an okay benefit, but you'd really honestly have to have a substantial amount in that ABLE account for it to make any kind of impact tax-wise. But what about when we die? All right, I already talked about taxes on the inheritance tax side of things, 4.5% on everything we own except life insurance. IRAs that we leave, pre-tax accounts are going to get taxed anywhere from 10 to 37%, depending on the tax rate of our loved ones. And if we're in a federally taxable estate, it's 40%. So it is less tax efficient to leave things when we die. If we've gifted while we are alive, which unless you're over 80, you're really too young to be thinking about it unless you're in the, maybe worth over $10 million. There's no taxes because it's already completed gift if we transferred wealth into the trust while we were alive. Same thing with the ABLE account. We've already gifted or transferred money into the ABLE account. It's not taxed when we die. But what about when your beneficiary dies? Well, if they predecease you, the money was already in your name, so there's no taxes due on that. In the special needs trust, if it was funded and they predecease you, the money in that trust could be an inheritance tax. It also goes 4.5% if we go up to our child to a parent. It's a 12% inheritance tax sibling to sibling, and it's 15% everybody else. So it depends on the type of asset. And with an ABLE account, the federal ABLE account legislation was passed by Obama with a required Medicaid reimbursement on any ABLE account funds left when the beneficiary dies, up to any Medicaid benefits paid out after the account was established. Well, no state has actually followed that legislation, but there could be an estate recovery. If you get adventurous, call the PA Treasury Department and ask them what happens if your kid dies and there's money left in his or her ABLE account. See what they tell you. I wouldn't want to be their guinea pig. How much can we fund? Well, you can invest and save as much money in your name as you want. You can also do the same thing with a special needs trust. Unlimited amounts can be gifted to it, where still none of it counts for government benefits. We can only put in this year $15,000, next year $16,000, a little bit more if your child is working, and if there's over $100,000, guess what? They lose SSI eligibility anyway. So very, very limited. Please do not run out and do this. 529s, had somebody ask about that. A 529 account is simply a savings bucket that is earmarked for college education, or actually any education now. And if we use a 529 for educational related purposes, we get all the earnings out tax-free. That's tremendous. What if we don't use it for education? Well, let's think about, again, what are our options? Yes, you can move a 529 into an ABLE account, but should you? That 529, if you as the parent are not going to use it for education for yourselves or for your kids, it's another retirement bucket for you. You just can't change it to your name. After 59 and a half, all the earnings, yeah, you'll have to pay ordinary income taxes on, but your contributions you take out tax-free. It's just another bucket you can use for your child while you're alive for your retirement income planning. It doesn't make sense to transfer that to an ABLE account if you don't have to. Keep it in your name, keep it in your control, rather than put it into something that's restrictive. I would say the same thing about, oh, my child's getting Social Security now and I can't spend the money fast enough on them. Well, come up with some creative ways to spend it. They live in your house, they pay for Netflix or Hulu, their Comcast, their cell phones, whatever it might be. Charge them for more things. You have every right to do that if they're living under your roof and they're on a Social Security benefit, if they're getting like $1,500 a month, rather than just turn around and, yes, it's easier to fund an ABLE account. There's some better ways to do it. So, and inheritance that comes in under $15,000, yeah, again, it's a quick fix to fund an ABLE account, but I'm sure you spent some money on them first where you could reimburse yourself for expenditures before you put a good chunk of money into an ABLE account. So again, be educated, be educated, be educated. Don't just run and do things just because you read an article or somebody told you, yeah, this is a great thing to do. So that's my 2 cents on an ABLE account. Let's see what else we got. SSI, again, using SSI or Social Security for your child. So if they're getting $800 a month, the thing you want to look at is how can you most effectively use $800 a month? Well, you charge them room and board, but either way, it's still $800 a month of positive cash flow to the household. Well, what if you invested $800 a month in your name and had it as, let's say Johnny has a disability, it's a Johnny account, you know it's his money, but it's in your Social Security number. You could save that $10,000 a year for them. And if you live a long enough time, that will grow to some sizable amount of money if the stock market cooperates. But what else could you do? So here's something, and for some reason, people think life insurance is bad. That's like saying trees are bad that produce oxygen for us to breathe. I have 2 little girls. I would want to leave them the world if I died yesterday, if I die when I'm 95 years old. But what I don't want that to do is affect my ability to live. And I can tell you, for every single grandparent that is a client of mine, they worry about spending too much because it's less for their, I guess they stop caring about their kids and they care about their grandkids. But it is a psychological tug of war to protect principal and leave it to the next generation. To worry about spending too much money on yourself just to protect principal, when that principal is going to be taxed at 4.5% or worse, it's not logical. And the stress that puts on not only you, but the stress it puts on your investments to try to manage them as efficiently as we can, it's hard. Well, life insurance for legacy purposes could just give you a free spending pass to leave a lot of money, tax-free, guaranteed to your children, and allows you to spend your money. If you knew there was an insurance company on the hook to fill your estate back up after you die, don't you think it would allow you to spend your money differently? Don't you think it would allow you to spend money on a nursing home knowing that the insurance company could fill your estate bucket back up? These are huge things that help from not just a mathematical standpoint, but a psychological standpoint. And life insurance, nobody likes it because you have to pay for it. Honest, I hate paying mine. I mean, look, I'd rather spend that money on something more fun, to be honest with you. But everybody would get as much as they could if it was free. So you have to understand, how do I pay for this? Well, the way most people do is you work, you earn income, you pay Uncle Sam, you have cash flow, and you begrudgingly pay your insurance premiums with it. It's the least fun way to do it because that money could have otherwise been spent on a trip or something much more enjoyable. Well, we can have our investments. I can promise you, if you've invested in the market over the past 10 years, you've made money. So you've got plenty of investment returns that are positive in those portfolios. You can take earnings from investments and use that to fund life insurance so it doesn't affect your ability to live. Works really well. We do it all the time with our retiree clients. Or you could use other people's money. Well, other people's money, number one, is the government. They're going to give your child $800 a month tax-free or $1,500 a month tax-free. What if we leverage that and said, how much money can how much life insurance can Uncle Sam buy with this SSI or Social Security indirectly? Works really well. What if somebody's willing to gift to you? Why don't we use their money and leverage it to buy enough life insurance that's there when it's needed? Remember, we don't need money today for our child. You're the special needs trust. We need it when you're not here. It fulfills that purpose very strategically. There's a unique one, tailored to really special needs planning, which can cover 2 parents under 1 contract. It is priced less expensively, more efficiently. You can get a lot more death benefit for a lower out-of-pocket cost, where it pays out at the second death. When do you need to fund the trust? At the parent's second passing. So these are the things we talk about. Again, it may work, it may not, but it's understanding all these different options and you making a decision that you're comfortable with. And look, I'm a CFP. We have to be a fiduciary in every aspect: investment management, insurance planning. I'm not telling you anything different that I wouldn't tell my own parents, that I don't practice or preach myself, that I don't believe in is always going to be in your or your kid's best interest. And I don't think it should be any different way. I mean, the fiduciary responsibilities as investment advisors is a relatively new thing in our industry, which makes no sense to me. But all of your investment, insurance, financial, tax advisors shouldn't be giving you things based on opinion. It should be based on here's what's in your best interest. So, I think, Sasha, I covered most of the questions. Some of the questions were so like unique that I think might be better served maybe one-on-one, and maybe not even for me to be the best one to answer, but probably good to talk to Shiva and Sasha about to get some of those answers. But I hope, for the sake of everybody's time that you spent with me, that you learn at least one new thing, that you can hopefully take some of this information, implement it in your planning. If you do want to sit down one-on-one, I mean, we're doing things via Zoom. It's actually a lot easier and efficient for the foreseeable future to talk about all of this and how it pertains to your situation. So feel free to privately message if you want to give me your email or cell phone number to reach out to you, and I certainly will. But please let other parents know if these resources are out there. I mean, I do these presentations pretty regularly. I think this is the last one I have till the new year, but they can always talk to me. They can, if you simply want to run an idea by me, if you need an attorney to talk to, I'd rather somebody come to me. And even if I'm not the one to help them right there, I can at least get them to somebody that I know is good at what they do. So I'll stop talking and open up the floor to any other questions that anybody might have. Don't all jump at once. This is usually when I would pick at people or pick on people when they're in person. So.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A or in the chat. We can see them through there. Is there a way people can contact you, Pat, if they want to reach out to you to schedule something or to meet with you for a consult?
Yes, I think I think it was in the chat that I put it in there in the beginning, my contact info. Okay. But let me, should be in there.
Yeah, it is up there. Yep. So if anyone needs Pat's information, it is in the chat box. So feel free. It's if you scroll up near the top of the chat, it's in there, his email address and his phone number. So you can reach out to him.
Yeah. Do you see if with those questions, was there anything I didn't touch on?
The questions I saw, it looks like you touched on. Let me just go back to the top and make sure. Let's see. Yeah, you answered that. Yeah, it looks like everything I see, you've answered. So, and I think if there's anything that's not related financially, I'm going to go ahead and retype in. Let's see.
Yeah, there was one person that asked, I kind of touched on this, but it said, how do we provide for siblings? Okay. That's a hard question. I mean, look, if you look at college education, weddings, things like that you might spend on your other kids, there are assets though that are better left to our neurotypical heirs than to a special needs trust. It used to be a lot clearer before the Secure Act that we would leave pre-tax retirement accounts to our other heirs and not to the special needs trust, just because the trust has a much harsher tax schedule than our other kids would. But I think a lot of this planning is going to take the financial, number one, if you do proper planning, the financial burden is taken off the siblings. The trust would take care of everything. And then if they're in California or Arizona or in the Midwest and they're not physically able to be here weekly to check in on their sibling, they can pay for that. There's agencies that do care management that they can pay for through trust assets to take their brother out or sister out to dinner, or to lunch, or go to the movies with them, go to a movie, go to a show with them, to provide companionship and to check in on where they're living, that they're still in a clean environment. Do they need anything? And these care management agencies report back to the siblings and say, okay, cool, great. Now we know we don't need to do anything. They may fly in for important decisions, but everything else, I mean, thinking about like vacationing. I mean, look, vacationing when you're not the one taking your child is going to look a lot different. And they're probably going to do their vacationing with their brother or sister. Well, their special needs trust can pay for their share of hotel, airfare, park tickets, and it can pay for their sibling because if they can't go on their own. So there's just all these little nuances that we tend not to think about because it's hard to think about. It's hard to think about, hey, if I wasn't here tomorrow, what does that look like in the next week and the next month? Transition. You guys know that bus is going to stop coming someday at age 21. And we plan 7 years for it, right? From 14 to 21. That's why it takes 7 years. The next transition you really need to think about is when does your child no longer live with you? When do you transition them out from your house to somewhere else? What are the options? What do you definitely not want them in? You might not want them in a group home. Well, what if you create your own group home? What if they have a group of friends that you maybe do this together with the other parents? What if you buy your child a house and we get the staffing full-time through waiver and they live on their own independently and the staff's there on shifts, 7-hour shifts, taking them to their day program or to their wherever they work. They're back there at dinner, they're overnight. Stuff takes planning, it takes money. We can't just sit around and wait for the government to do it. And just imagine the scenario if you died yesterday, what would tomorrow look like when people were trying to figure things out? And you had somebody living with you for 40 years in the same home with the same people, and now you're not here anymore. I think that scenario would be a lot worse than it is. You have to rip the Band-Aid off, but getting them to move out while you're here, making sure they're okay not being here with you, you're okay not being with them 24/7, and understanding that they're all right. And they might shock you on how independent they could be. And I think the comfort and the weight that might take off your shoulders to say, hey, look, if I don't live till I'm 110, they're going to be okay. And so will my other kids. And I have a support system in place. I know where the deficits are and how we can fill them. And then you can go on living and you can go on a vacation by yourselves. Not have to worry about physically being here for your child. Or you go on a vacation with your child and you pay for an aide to come along with you. Vacation expenses look a lot different with special needs, but we owe this to ourselves. We owe it to our children as well, because they're going to be the ones left cleaning up any messes that we don't deal with beforehand. So, and I say that from personal experience with clients. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that's one of the hardest conversations to have, but it's the most necessary conversation to have. Just planning ahead for that time, whether it's when you pass or you can no longer care for your child, just knowing that peace of mind that they're going to be in good hands is probably the best conversation to have. We did have a question come in about paying for college. So if they have a child with special needs who wants to go to college, can they take out a loan for college? And I guess how would that affect financial planning?
I think if they have capacity and they can sign a loan application, yeah, I don't think there would be any reason for them to not be able to get financing for college education. So I guess that's the easiest answer there. When it comes to paying for college, the thing I always approach with my clients is like, how can we pay for college that has the least negative impact on your ability to retire? So maybe it's a 529. Full disclosure, I've never used a single 529 in 16 years. Don't have one for my daughters, but we could use one. We could use home equity. We could use investments. We could use cash flow. We want all of these choices on the table in front of us when it comes time to write those checks, because we don't know, number one, where the market's going to be. I can tell you, if you had the choice of writing a check to a financial or to an educational institution for $30,000 or investing $30,000 in a stock market that's 25% off, which one do you think you'd want to choose? I'd rather buy good stocks at a 25% discount and take a loan out to pay the educational institution. So don't make decisions today on how you're going to spend money in 5 years or 15 years. Create options for yourself. Same thing when it comes to navigating retirement income. You need to plan for market volatility. You need to plan for tax law changes. You need as many buckets to pick from when you're planning on spending money, so that you can ideally never sell when the market is temporarily down. So people don't understand that. You never lose money in the stock market unless you sell when it's lower. You didn't lose any money in last March when it dropped 33%, as long as you didn't sell. You've been handsomely rewarded by sticking to the long-term focus. You didn't lose any money in 07 and 08 if you didn't sell. That will hold true for the rest of your lives. It just gets a lot harder when you have to spend money because you're living off your investments. So a question popped in. How does receiving all this affect our son applying for a job? If they work after the first $60 a month, SSI is reduced to 50 cents on the dollar, I believe. So if they are on SSI and get a job, they can still work to an extent where at least they get $1 of SSI, it will keep them eligible for Medicaid. That's what you try to do. But there's certain things, they're called impairment related work expenses. Think of them as like business expenses that, cost for transportation to work, cost for extra supervision or support at work. These things can reduce their countable income so it doesn't have as much of an impact on SSI. But that's only SSI. Social Security is not affected by them working or anything like that. They just can't work and earn above that disabled threshold, whatever, $1,300 a month, whatever it is this year. So, but we want our kids to work. We want them to be as gainfully employed as possible, and still try to get benefits if it's possible. But if they go out there and they get a job making 30 grand, they're probably not going to get any benefits. But they're also probably not going to be able to live the life you really want for them making $30,000. So you probably will still need to support them. So those higher functioning loved ones in your lives doesn't mean the support ends. It just might look a lot different than somebody that's getting SSI and Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. There might just be more that falls on your shoulders to financially support them. But good question.
Thank you. I also reposted Pat's information in the chat if anyone was looking for that contact information.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page. You can find us there. It's 1847 special needs something or other. I always forget what it's called, but you'll find us if you look on Facebook. If you want to email me too, or send me your email, I have a newsletter that goes out anytime I'm doing stuff like this or other important stuff's going on in the community. I like to share it. And then the newsletter has articles that are not all even correlated to financial planning, but just special needs related articles once a month that are good to read. So if you want to sign up for that, just send me your info and I'll get you added to that distribution list.
And if after this webinar, if you lose the information or you still need to reach out and you don't know how to reach out to Pat, you can always reach out to Sheba or I, and we can certainly pass Pat's information along to you as well.
Yeah, and especially whoever asked about the 529 and an ABLE account, all of your ABLE account questions are so unique to individuals. So you really need to have a good conversation about that and just say, what's the drawback between this ABLE account funding versus me doing something else with it? I just hate when I see people, oh yeah, I'm putting $15,000 a year in an ABLE account because I can save for my child. I'm like, why? Why would you do that without understanding you could use that $15,000 so much more effectively? And remember, you don't need it. Your kid doesn't need it while you're alive. You're here. You'll spend everything on them. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what they have in an ABLE account or their trust. And tell your parents too, if they're going to gift, even if they want to give $15,000 a year to your child's special needs trust, or $30,000 a year if they're married, that 30 grand a year for like a 70-year-old grandparent, even if they live another 20 years, will that grow to enough money to make that much of a difference in your child's life? It will definitely help. Don't get me wrong, but could that 30,000 be used more effectively now? What if that 30,000, if your parents were healthy, bought $500,000 of life insurance in themselves instead of gifting it to the special needs trust? Well, now when they die, which is inevitable, our parents are going to die someday, and I say that from personal experience. I lost my mom last summer. They're all going to die someday, and if they can leave as much money behind to you as tax-free as it possibly can, wouldn't you rather not pay the taxes on the money than pay taxes on what you receive from them? So again, it's talking to them about some of the unique things they can do as grandparents, and getting money out of IRAs in their name and converting to Roth so they can more tax efficiently leave money behind to you or their grandchildren. But I've done it a lot with grandparents that are gifting money to the children. The children are turning around and using that money to fund Roth IRAs, to fund the life insurance premiums, to create the most tax efficient wealth for the grandchild when it's needed, which is when they're not here anymore. So it's pretty cool stuff that you can do. It's just knowing all that is out there. Oh, thank you, Shiva. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys. And if I could see you all, I'd ask you all to raise your hand if you learned something. So hopefully you all did. I'm always here. My door's always open if you want to talk about anything. And Shiva, Sasha, thank you guys for having me out. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what I find as a very fun, interesting, but complex conversation to have.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to Pat, and I'm sure on all our attendees' behalf, thank you for sharing all this great information. I know I learned a few things, so I'm sure other people learned things as well. So I appreciate your time and spending it with us. And thank you to all our attendees for coming. This was really great. And like I said, if anyone needs more information, let me know, let Shiva know, or you can contact Pat. His information's in the chat. this session is being recorded, so we will send out this recording to everyone who's on this list. So all our attendees will get the recording. We'll send that out once Sheba and I can figure out, I'll be perfectly honest, once we can figure out how to pull it, we will pull it and send it out to you guys in email, so you guys can watch it. I know because it was a lot of information, you know, you can rewatch it and rewatch it. But thank you again for your time, Pat. Thank you to our attendees. And if there's no more questions, everyone have a great night.
Yeah, thank you guys again.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
Bye.